Hello and welcome to Monkey Knife Fight Live. Folks, I'm Conor Rowntree and we're joined today by AJ MMA Bets. AJ, just to get everything started, we're talking UFC 264 today, but tell everybody at home a little bit more about yourself. How did you start AJ MMA Bets and what drove you towards the UFC?
Yeah, awesome to be joining you, Connor, for UFC 264. And yeah, I've been betting since beginning of 2019. Placed my first bet, tracked it. Some wins started piling up, and after a while, I just realized this was my passion. It's what I wanted to do, not just winning bets, but looking into the fights, predicting them, analyzing them. Just the process week to week is very awesome to me. It drives me a lot to just wake up and do it, and then go to bed at late and do the same thing. And after a while, just decided to leave my corporate job back in January of 2020, decided to go all in, decided to start a website, ajmmabetting.com. And of course, the pandemic happened. It was an uphill battle there for a little bit, but I was able to get some clients along the way. So people stuck with me. And yeah, it's awesome to be providing a good service to people, helping them out, helping them win money and understand exactly what it takes to win bets long term. My goal is to obviously provide winning bets, but also educate the audience, the clientele, what it takes to be successful long term. Because quick wins are great, don't get me wrong, but I place a lot more emphasis on what happens in the long game. So still learning, still growing. I consider myself a student, even though some people consider me an expert. That's very humbling. But I'm still nonstop adjusting my process, gaining more intel, and making adjustments where need be. So super thrilled to be here and looking forward to this event, man.
Yeah, it's going to be totally awesome. And we're so happy to have you. I'm excited for this conversation. We were talking about it before we came on air. We've both been up since like 7 a.m., just pacing around, waiting for this live stream to start. Came in early. AJ, what are your thoughts on the card, man? UFC 264. The undercard could be a UFC fight night in itself. It's stacked. And then the main card. Oh, my goodness. You got Poirier McGregor, Wonder Boy, one of the best strikers in MMA. And then not to mention, you got the big boys, Greg Hardy, Tuivasa, a couple of ladies throwing down. What do you think of the card as a whole?
Yeah, obviously the main event is spectacular, but I don't look at this card as if the main event is carrying the whole card. We've got a lot of great fights, as you pointed out, even on the prelims. Michelle Pereira and Nico Price, sign me up for that 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. Are you kidding me with that fight? I mean, you got Ilya Topuria, who, as you mentioned, Sean O'Malley is a great prospect and people are going to watch him, but also Topuria is a great prospect out of Spain, very well-rounded fighter. He gets Ryan Hall. That's a tremendous fight. You got some other ranked fights that featured ranked fighters: Omari Akhmedov versus Brad Tavares, two guys ranked at middleweight, Yana Kunitskaya against Irene Aldana. This card has a little bit of everything: prospects, ranked fighters. Even though there's no belt on the line for this pay-per-view, this is a tremendous event, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this be the best event of the year.
Well, a lot of the times, too, that the UFC tries to do, we saw it with the Cowboy fight, and maybe the last Poirier fight a bit. The McGregor cards, they haven't been as strong as late, but they really came in with the summer blockbuster here. And getting into McGregor versus Poirier, we know what happened in the first fight. McGregor went out, knocked him out inside 2 minutes. The second fight, I scored the first round for Conor. I'll be interested to see how you scored it, AJ. I think he landed the harder shots, and he did more damage in that opening round. Dustin is obviously a smart guy. He's got great coaching, and he saw that leg was weak. He neutralized it, ended the fight in the second. Now, based on McGregor's cardio work and the adjustments that he's made in rematches in the past, and on Poirier's heart, I don't see either man going down in the first couple of rounds in this fight. AJ, how did you see the first fight? How did you see the second fight? And then what do you think is going to happen in this third fight? Because personally, I think it's going to go much longer, but I'm not going to say who's going to win just yet. I want to hear who you're going to say.
Yeah, so obviously when these two first fought, it was back at featherweight several years ago. Conor knocked out Dustin quickly. As we've seen Dustin transition over to the lightweight weight class, we have seen him knocked out. We have seen him hurt by Justin Gaethje, by Michael Johnson, but his chin has looked better. He has just looked better as a fighter. And it kind of makes sense why we saw the rematch go a little bit differently. I do agree with you. I thought Conor won round one pretty clear, competitive round, but clear. And those calf kicks of Poirier, the counters of Poirier, that's what really helped him win the fight and get the flurry finish there towards the end of the second round. The sort of MO that Conor carries throughout his career is he's extremely dangerous, one of the, if not the most dangerous fighters in rounds 1 or 2. But if you could extend Conor, he tends to fatigue. I too agree with you that he makes adjustments, but even in that second Diaz fight, we saw him slow down. Granted, he won round 4, caught a second win there, but Diaz was flurrying on him in round 3, won round 5 as well. So I don't know that I can necessarily expect Conor to all of a sudden come out with great cardio. I think in terms of adjustments, I think we could expect him to throw some leg kicks. We saw Jim Miller hurt Poirier with leg kicks. We saw Justin Gaethje do the same thing. We saw Conor make that adjustment in the second Diaz fight. So either guy's live to throw leg kicks. I didn't really factor in Poirier throwing leg kicks in the rematch, but it was nice to see him doing it. I think watching Conor on tape, he has checked those in the past. I just think that he didn't against Poirier the second time, because when you watch him on tape, the dude barely throws him.
Yeah, and then listening to Poirier even said it wasn't even part of his game plan. The leg kicks, he said, at least in an interview with the Helwani, he was like, no, I saw it was an opening and it was working, so I took it.
Yeah, I love that about him. I mean, this is what we get when we have two high-level fighters. They will make in-fight adjustments, and that is truly a spectacular thing in the sport. It's obviously great to come in with a game plan, but to make adjustments when need be. We see extremely high-level combat sports fighters do this. Floyd Mayweather comes to mind, comes out, reads you for the first few rounds, and then kind of picks up where you're going and then makes adjustments where need be. But as it pertains to this fight, I could see other guy hurting each other early. We know that both guys could hurt each other with their hands. Even though Dustin didn't go down in the rematch, he did admit after the fight that Conor did hurt him. So we know that they could both hurt each other with leg kicks, with hands. And I think that creates an interesting dynamic, because that wasn't really something that I factored in the rematch, was that Poirier could knock out Conor early, whereas now we have that evidence to say that he can. And so I think it creates for a super interesting fight. And I definitely agree a lot more with where the odds are now, rather than Conor was a minus 300 in the rematch. So super compelling.
Well, yeah, it's very interesting to see Conor coming in as the underdog now. It was basically a pick 'em all week, and then I guess a lot of money has been coming in over Poirier over the last little bit. But if we take a look at Monkey Knife Fight and take a look at their significant strike lines, Conor McGregor coming in at 59 and a half significant strikes, and Dustin Poirier coming in at 85 and a half. AJ, I said, I think this fight's going to go longer, so I'm going to take more on both of their significant strike lines. I think it makes it into that third round and probably even the fourth round, because I like the Poirier's chin. You said it. It's been extremely durable since he's put on the extra weight and moved up to lightweight. And I don't think Conor's going to go away. I think he's going to take those strikes in stride and move with the rhythm that we saw him with Diaz when he is cornered, a little more movement, and hopefully not get his leg kicked in, so this fight does go a little longer so that we, the fans, can enjoy it. How do you see that going, AJ?
Yeah, so I actually am going to take the other side here. I do respect your opinion and your logic. I think it makes a lot of sense. If you think the fight is going to go long, Conor will definitely hit that over. We see that Conor strikes at a high rate. That's in the stats. He landed over 160 significant strikes when he went 5 rounds with Diaz. When I look at the stats, though, he's only actually topped that strike mark a few times. The vast majority of the time he goes under, in part because Conor gets a lot of quick finishes. And if I'm kind of playing the fight out in my head and I think it could go, a finish could happen early, I think that under could cash for Conor. But I actually like the over on Poirier, because the vast majority of the time Poirier goes over that 59 and a half mark. I get it that it's baked into the fact that the fight could end early. Poirier might get a finish, Conor may get a finish there, but I'm going to trust the stats here. I'm going to go over with Poirier, but under on Conor.
Interesting. Well, who do you see winning the fight overall? Just straight up, who walks away as the victor of the main event of UFC 264?
I picked Poirier because I think if the fight gets extended, he's the guy I would favor. His cardio isn't elite, but it's better than McGregor's, in my opinion. We've seen Poirier go out there and fight cardio machines and win decisions against cardio machines, and Max Holloway, 5 rounds. That's a great win. And Conor just historically slows down around the 7.5 minute mark. So if I think Conor's main way to win is with an early knockout within that time frame, but Poirier could win, is likely to win the fight should it get extended, I just think that Poirier has more paths to victory, and that's why I think he should be favored. It's not like this ultra convicted pick that I'm locked in, but I do agree from a probability perspective that the pendulum should be a little bit more in favor of Poirier here.
Well, I actually do like the McGregor knockout, and I like it after that 7-minute mark. I think Poirier is durable. I don't think he's going to go anywhere, and I think McGregor, he's going to pace himself. Yes, I've seen him fight. We've seen it. We've seen him get gas, but we've also seen him prepare and go for those Diaz fights and have that second wind. Now, the other reason why I like Conor for the late knockout, and you mentioned it, the Max Holloway fight. If Max Holloway lands upwards of 170 significant strikes and Dan Hooker lands upwards of 150 significant strikes in a 5-round fight, Unless your last name is Diaz, you cannot take 150 significant strikes from Conor McGregor. No matter how tough Poirier is, no matter how good his chin is, no matter how good his cardio is at 155, the facts are if you're going to take 100, I can't stand here at 235 pounds and take 150 significant strikes from Conor McGregor. So I think over time and the duration, and I think if Conor does hang in there and the shots keep hitting the mark, which Poirier, he pushes forward, his head is up a lot. I do think the shots to the head are going to land. And I think if that comes over later in the fight, I think that's how McGregor gets the finish.
I'm going to go with less than 150 on Conor Rowntree in any kind of competition. I'm going to go with less than 10 against the UFC fighter. Conor, if you can, just tell the viewers about the UFC 264 voucher code.
So make sure you guys use the UFC's 264 voucher code when you sign up or sign into Monkey Knife Fight to play for UFC 264. All you need to do is sign into your Monkey Knife Fight account, go in and use the promo code UFC 264, all one word, all caps, and you will get a $5 voucher to play on these fights. Now we're going to move into the co-main event. AJ, is there anything else you want to touch on that main event? I think we got both sides of it. We got the fact that Poirier's got the better cardio. He's got the better chin. It could go long. We've touched on the fact that Poirier gets hit a lot. Conor comes out firing. Is there anything else that you want to add and to touch there? I like how we're going different ways with it. I got to be honest with you. It adds a little more spice to it.
I am 100% with you, and I think we absolutely crushed it. So no more needed to be added on my end.
All right, moving into Stephen Wonderboy Thompson then versus Gilbert Burns. Wonderboy coming in 16-4-1. Gilbert Burns 19-4. Strike lines for Wonderboy Thompson is 95.5 on Monkey Knife Fight, and Gilbert Burns coming in at 67.5. Well, for me, Wonderboy just has unbelievable movement. His striking is excellent, and so is his takedown defense. And I think this fight goes as Burns is going to push for the takedown and tire himself out. Wonderboy's been taken down just twice since 2012, and that was both against Tyron Woodley and his brother-in-law is Chris Weidman. Jason, thank you for that. He reminded me of that the other day, and I had to go do my homework. But yes, it is true. So he spends a lot of time on the mat. I like Wonderboy to win this fight, and I think he landing over 4 significant strikes per minute, absorbing less than 3. I think he picks Burns apart, and I like him to win this fight. I think he goes for more than his strikes, and I think Burns goes for less. Wonderboy's only absorbed more than 67 strikes just once in the 3-round fight. So I have to go with more. I think Wonderboy's just going to piece him up. AJ, how do you see this fight going?
Awesome. Yeah, I think you made good analysis there. Wonderboy is just a much better striker. Of course, Burns is live to land a big shot. We've seen Wonderboy rocked. We've seen him knocked out by Anthony Pettis, who's not a big power puncher by any means. But we know who the better striker is. We know who the guy is more technical, more varied, the guy who's just so much more experienced as a striker and has got a length advantage here, 4 inches of reach, a couple inches of height. Burns will have to close that distance, like you said, and that Wonderboy's going to love that because he loves to wait back, control range, and counter. And we've seen Burns hurt many times in the past. Rashid Magomedov back at lightweight. We saw him knocked out by Dan Hooker, a long, rangy guy. He's coming off a loss to Kamaru Usman, and Usman's the champ. He's a great fighter. We were talking beforehand, pound for pound best, arguably, but he's getting rocked by jabs there. So Thompson, with the precision that he has, I just think that he's the better striker, should win the aggregate. The exchanges will be on Burns to land a big shot or take him down. And as you mentioned, Thompson's got good takedown defense and decent get-ups. So it's a pretty tough matchup for Burns on paper. And while I agree with your analysis of the fight, I actually disagree with your strikes on Thompson. I actually think he goes under that 95.5 mark because I think he finishes Burns early. I think he's going to catch Burns with a counter in rounds 1 or 2, and he's going to go under that mark, and he's going to knock Burns out. And I also agree with you on the under for Burns. I just think it's going to be tough for him to land strikes on Thompson at range. And as we said, if he's going to have a difficult time taking down Thompson, he's going to have a tough time landing ground strikes. So I like the under for both guys on the strikes, and I think Thompson rolls.
Well, you hit it on the head. And another fight that I wanted to touch on was the fact that he was knocked out by Dan Hooker. And Dan Hooker and Wonderboy, they have similar dimensions, different weight class, but they are similar. And they both are heavy strikers. And the fact that Gilbert Burns got knocked out in the 3rd round, he started to slow down. I think he's got the heart maybe to hang into that 3rd round against the lighter strikes from Wonderboy. And that's why I think Wonderboy just peppers it with accurate striking that just wears him down. And we see another knockout victory for Wonderboy en route to probably a title shot. Because out of those welterweights, he's the only guy that really hasn't had his bite and his chance at Kamaru Usman. And I think this is the perfect matchup for Wonderboy. And Jason, if you just want to bring up the fantasy points here, because I like this on the fantasy points. So Monkey Knife Fight's got a fantasy point scoring system, and we'll pull that up here. If you look at it, so a first round knockout win is 100 points. Wonderboy, if he gets the first round knockout, automatically goes over on that. For the record, I like the more on Wonderboy, and I like less on Gilbert Burns for the fantasy point structure. Second round win is 75 points. Third round win is 50 points. It's only a 3-round fight, so you don't have to worry about it. Pardon me. I think there's going to be a lot of strikes. Each strike is 0.6, and then a knockdown is 12 points. So if you close the scoring system there, Jason, and we look at Wonderboy's total score, it's just 94 points. If he gets a third-round knockout with a knockdown right there, that's 62 points, not counting his strikes. So I think Wonderboy is going to go for more on his fantasy point line on Monkey Knife Fight, and I think Gilbert Burns falls short because, as you said, Wonderboy's the better striker. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage, and I just think he keeps it to the outside. He rides his bike. They're not fighting at the apex. They're in a full-size octagon, so he's going to have the 30 feet to work with to get on that bike and get out of trouble. And I think that's exactly what he does. And I think you hit it on the head. I think Wonderboy is just a more skilled tactician on the feet, and that's going to be the difference there. Anything you want to add on the Wonderboy fight, or did we just knock that out of the park? Because I feel like we hit that pretty hard.
Just also
we knocked
Poirier official at 156, just so you guys know. Conor is yet to weigh in, but we'll get there too. Just wanted to give the live stream the update. Back to Thompson.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. And I think we crushed it. And I agree with your assessment on the fantasy points. Thompson over, Burns under.
Contest number 3 that we're going to look at today. There you go, folks. So that pays 3 times. $100 buy-in will give you $300, 10 for 30, and the rest of the math you can figure out by yourself. Moving into Tuivasa versus Greg Hardy. Now, I am excited for this fight. You got a former NFL star versus the Shoey, and you better know if Tuivasa gets a win, that I will be doing a shoey all by myself, watching these fights by myself. The line on Monkey Knife Fight is 43.5 strikes for Tuivasa and 51.5 for Greg Hardy. AJ, I'm going to throw this one to you first. How do you see this fight going, both in the ring and on Monkey Knife Fight?
It's a very tricky fight, for my opinion, because they both are great athletes, such big guys, but neither of them are great technical MMA fighters yet. Hardy's just so inexperienced as an MMA fighter. And we saw that in his last fight against Tybura. He showed no grappling off of his back. And I don't think that'll be tested here against Tuivasa. He's got issues with grappling himself, but it just tells me that Hardy needs a lot more seasoning. He's got a 5-inch reach here. I think he's a better technical boxer, but to counter myself, I think Tuivasa's got more power in his hands, and he's got some very nasty leg kicks. Neither guy has good cardio. I do trust Tuivasa a little bit more, though, just from an intangibles perspective. He works at American Kickboxing Academy, and that it tells me that he's working with high-level training partners. Islam Makhachev, for instance, Umar Nurmagomedov. These guys are studs. And I just look at the fight, and I look at Greg Hardy gas out in 5 minutes against Maurice Green, and just think that he's got to keep Tuivasa at bay with his jab, and he might be able to do that early. But as the fight progresses, I could see Tuivasa closing the distance more and maybe even hurting him. So as far as a prediction goes, I'm going to side with Hardy, but I don't feel that confident in him, even as an underdog. And as far as the strikes go, I got to go under for both of them. And it's because I don't trust either of their cardios. And I don't think there will be a lot of clinch exchanges here. I don't think there will be a lot of grappling. Neither of them is interested in doing that sort of game plan. I could just see them both standing at range, landing power strikes, which as a result will fatigue them as the fight goes on. So I just see this as a low volume affair for the cardio, for the power reasons. And that's the stand I'm willing to take.
I think that's a great. I think you got to knock on that they're going to stand in front of each other and they don't have good cardio. That's just the facts of the matter. But I actually think they're going to go for more than their strikes, because we've seen Greg Hardy land 46 significant strikes in 4 straight fights, and those weren't against guys that are willing to trade like Tuivasa. Tuivasa, I mean, if you watch the fight against Junior Dos Santos, he is running forward and throwing bombs with his head down to the point where Junior Dos Santos takes a step to the left and he runs into the cage. He's not going to give Greg Hardy a second to breathe. Now, you're on the head. One of these guys gets put it on the button and they're done in the first round. It's what side is it? I think Tuivasa's got a heck of a chin on him, and I don't think he's going to let Greg Hardy walk him down. So I'm actually leaning towards Tuivasa in this one. I think he's got the better MMA background. I do think Hardy has the sharper boxing that we've seen inside the octagon. But when it comes down to being the fighter that I think is going to hang around, have the extra heart to go into the second round, go into the later round, and land that flurry of strikes to end the fight, I think it's going to be Tuivasa. And I like him to win it by knockout because, as you said, we saw Greg Hardy gas against Maurice Green. We saw him against the Tybura fight his last time out. He got finished. Well, it was on his back. It wasn't a good look, and he looked absolutely exhausted. So I like Tuivasa, and I like more on both their strike lines because I think they're just going to stand and trade, and I think they have good enough chins to do it for at least a round and a half. And I think it's going to. I just don't think that either of them are going to want to take a step backwards. I actually have this going in as my fight, one of my picks for fight of the night. AJ, how do you feel that at all, or do you just think their cardio is not there enough, and it's just no? I'm just completely off base with that.
I hope you're right. I just think that the cardio won't hold up enough for them to put on that sort of performance. Unfortunately, it'd be for as great as that would sound. It would kind of remind me of Tafa versus who's the gentleman he fought, Felipe, back that heavyweight fight that we saw when Fight of the Night basically back in January. It would look kind of like that, but I can't trust the endurance.
You're getting more instead of that. You're getting more vibes of Kimbo Slice versus Data 5000, where they both had a heart attack inside the octagon.
Yeah.
We're leading closer to that.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious. All right, folks, on to the next bout. We got the ladies moving on to the main card. It's Yana Kunitskaya versus Irene Aldana. Irene Aldana coming into the fight at 12-6. Kunitskaya 14-5-0. And folks, it looks like Jason just pulled it up. Conor McGregor, made weight.
Yeah, we have the main event is official. Burns is official. Thompson's official. Where it's off to weigh-ins look like they're off to a crispy clean start. I believe O'Malley was 135.5, so I believe he is official. I'm not making that up, right? Did I make that number right? Hold on. Well, don't trust me on that one. The other fights are official. And
so to confirm from producer Jason, the main event and the co-main event, the two most important fights on the card, are official. So we have a co-main and we have a main event. Rafael Dos Santos will not be needed, which is nice. All right, Irina Aldana versus Yana Kunitskaya. Irina, oh my goodness, look at this strike line. Yana Kunitskaya, 122.5 significant strikes versus Irina Aldana, 93.5 strikes. A little background on these ladies. Kunitskaya has won 4 out of her last 5 fights. She's only ever lost in the UFC twice, both by knockout. One of them was a title fight to Chris Cyborg, so you can't really blame her on that one. Kunitskaya's landed at least 43 strikes in all but one of her fights inside the octagon. Aldana has been hit with over 100 significant strikes and more than 5 out of her 9 UFC appearances. I like this to be a stand-up war because of that, and I like to see a whole lot of strikes. AJ, how do you see this fight going?
I have a tricky time reading this one. I think Aldana is the better boxer. She's got better volume. I think she's more durable and has more power, but I've seen her on tape controlled many times in the clinch. And that's what Yana loves to do. She controlled Aspen Ladd in the clinch. She controlled Yulia Stoliarenko in the clinch. She's very good at holding you there and inflicting strikes. And that's why I think this number is so high at 122. It seems absurd, but when you look at her stats, it makes sense in a way how she's fought her last couple times, and even the last time against Vieira. So it'll be on Yana here to close the distance, get the clinch, hold her there like Raquel Pennington did against Aldana. That was a successful aspect of her game plan there. And it'll be on Aldana to utilize her footwork, her movement, her boxing to keep range and just kind of basically box Yana up. I kind of like this. I do like them rather to go under both of them. Yana Kunitskaya absorbs 2.62 significant strikes per minute. And if I think that there's going to be a lot of clinch time here, that would just mitigate the amount of strikes thrown by both of them. Again, I mean, Kunitskaya could definitely throw some strikes in the clinch, some knees, things like that, but it'd be just more so pitter patter. I don't see her eclipsing that number. And also, I think she'll have a tougher time tracking down Irene to get into the clinch because Irene is just very fast, light on her feet, things like that. And so as far as a prediction goes, I picked Kunitskaya because I think the striking is competitive. But if I think Kunitskaya has the clinch advantage, the control advantage, that's more enough for me to lean towards her. But very close fight. I agree with it being competitive on the betting line. I like the under for both their strike counts.
Yeah, I'm with you on the under for both their strike counts. And I like Kunitskaya too to win this fight. I think she has the ability to take this fight to the ground. We saw that against Lena Landsberg. Although it was one takedown, she did take her down. She held her for a bit. Kunitskaya also took her down 5 times en route to victory in that fight. And then Ketlin Vieira, I mean, in her last outing, she, as you said, the clinch on the feet, she looked great. She pieced her up. I think Vieira only landed 7 strikes in that fight, which is absolutely absurd. So I'm going to go with less on both their significant strike lines because obviously Yana Kunitskaya, she doesn't get hit a lot. Irina Aldana does from, as I said, she's absorbed over 500 strikes across 5 fights. That's absurd. But again, I think you said it, clinch work. And I think if Yana Kunitskaya has a path to victory in the clinch and on the ground, and I think that's the way that she should approach this fight, which means a little less striking, which means I like her to win the fight on the ground and take the win, but less on monkey knife fight. That actually That actually does a little bit, Jason, because I don't know about AJ, but for me, part of the thing was the fact that Kunitskaya is going to have the ability to hang on to Aldana and hold her. If Aldana isn't going to be able to be held onto, I think there's going to be actually more strikes landed than originally predicted. But again, I still have to go with the under because that's a lot of strikes, or go with less, pardon me, because that's a lot of strikes to be landed. AJ, does the weight cut, does that change anything in your eyes, or are you still riding with the less?
I understand your point about it could make Aldana a bit more physical. She didn't have to cut as much weight, but I still, just watching Yana Kunitskaya control Aspen Ladd, who's very physically strong in the clinch, gives me confidence that even against a stronger Irene, she could still hold her there. So it's noteworthy, but I don't really factor it in all too much. It doesn't change my opinion.
So both of us are taking less on the ladies in the strike lines. Again, a competitive fight, but we just think Yana Kunitskaya will be too much to handle and is the better all-around mixed martial artist. Now it is time, AJ. It's ready for the Sugar Show. Oh, this one's going to be fun. Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Chris Moutinho. 13-1 versus 9-4. Moutinho walks forward with his hands down. You can watch a couple of his fights. I found some on YouTube. It doesn't look good for him. He's a tough kid. He really is, from what I've seen of him. But yeah, he walks forwards with his hands down, and that's just the exact kind of dinner that Sean O'Malley is going to be trying to eat on Saturday night. How do you see that one going, AJ?
Oh, geez. I see the Sugar Show just getting a quick finish. I mean, I think this is what the fight sets up for him. He's just a stellar prospect, and I know he had a bump in the road there against Vera, but there's no shame in losing to Vera. We were talking beforehand. He's like a fringe top 15 type guy. And look at who he's lost to.
The way he lost, right? I mean, we talked about it. I mentioned how Michael Chandler had lost that way. You mentioned, I forget somebody, but it was before the fight. And he's not the only person to have the nerve injury in the leg lead to a loss. Former champion Michael Chandler just fought for a title. So I don't think that's the biggest thing holding him back. And I think that, yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be a quick finish. And if it's not a quick finish, it looks bad on O'Malley. What do you think of the monkey knife fight strike lines, though? 31.5 for O'Malley, needs 32. And Chris Moutinho needs 17 at 16.5. How do you see that going?
I know that they're both low numbers, but I like them both to go under. I just think that it's going to be super quick here. Sean is going to be too fast, too sharp. He's longer here. And as you mentioned, Chris here just does not have good striking defense. He's been knocked out on the regionals, and there was even a fight where he won, but he still got rocked badly in. So we know Sean, and just like Thompson that we talked about earlier. I mean, you look at the guy's frame, you're like, yeah, he's, physical guy, but you wouldn't think he's a big power puncher, but it's just his precision, his timing that makes those shots that much more impactful. So I think Sean just probably goes out here, sticks at range, throws his nice various kicks to measure him, and then he just catches him with the big counter right hand and puts him out there and just gets a quick finish in under 60 seconds, I'll say.
Under 60 seconds. So, I mean, so I'm looking at this, though, 17 strikes, not significant strikes. So we're talking like pow, finding range. That's 1-2. A leg kick, checking that's 1. You don't think he's going to land 17 of those?
No, I don't.
I love that confidence. Yeah, I love that confidence too. I'm taking less on both of them as well. I think O'Malley gets the first round knockout. And I think it's the pressure that O'Malley puts on himself, right? He talked about it this week. He loves McGregor's style. He wants to emulate that. He doesn't think he is the next Conor McGregor, but he has learned from him. And those finishes, those are what attract people. And I think the UFC made this match for a reason. They want to see another O'Malley knockout. They want another viral highlight. And so next time when he goes into a top 15 to face another top 15 opponent, then he has a little more something behind him. But again, I don't think O'Malley. Yeah, I don't think this fight does not see the second round. I like O'Malley via knockout. AJ, getting into the undercard picks now. Who is your undercard pick of the fight?
I got to go with Amedovski under 67.5 strikes. And the stats like it, averages 0.52 significant strikes per minute in the UFC. Granted, it's a 2-fight sample size. Oh, go ahead.
Second. Jason's on the wrong fight. There you go. Very first one of the night, Jason. So this just a background for people watching at home. This might be the worst fight ever put on a card. Both these guys have lost back-to-back fights. Like it's a bold statement, but this could be something. AJ, take it away.
Yeah, fair mix up there, similar names. But yeah, when you watch Amedovski strike, he just is uninterested in throwing offense. Watching him against Krzysztof Jotko, just fights at such a slow pace. Looked at some of his Bellator fights. I mean, he seems like a power puncher to some extent, like a counter striker. Yao Zhang, we saw in the Culture fight, he's very hittable. But if Amedovski's just so unwilling to throw strikes, I can't exactly rely on him to go out there and top that number. And as you mentioned, this fight's kind of just a dumpster fire. And when we got a dumpster fire fight where fighters, have weaknesses in their game, that could mean a finish materializes rather quickly here. So I'm really liking Amedovski to go under, and I'm pretty sold that Yazong is just the guy that comes in looking a lot better of the two. He's younger. He's been doing work at Tiger Muay Thai. From what I hear, his Instagram remains a mystery, but just old Instagram pictures, youthful guy, looked decent against Coulter with his pace, his volume, his striking looked pretty good as well. So yeah, I think he pulls off a slight upset, and Amedovski goes under that 67.5 strike mark.
I like it a lot. To be honest with you, I think you're right. I didn't even really look at that to touch it just because of who was in it and just their records in general in the UFC. But yeah, no, that's a great pick because you're right. I watched that fight. There was very little volume going forward, and I don't think there will be this time. My undercard pick to watch is Jessica Ai versus Jennifer Maia. Jessica Ai 15-9-1 no contest. Jennifer Maia 18-7-1. Now, both these ladies are under 85 strikes, and I like them to go for more than their strike line. I think they're just going to stand and bang. They both lost 2 of the last 3 fights. They need a win to get back into title contention. Ai has the reach advantage, and both of these ladies actually absorb more than they land. And I think that's a huge, huge thing, that the striking defense isn't there. So they're just going to be throwing it to the wind, and they both average over 14 minutes of octagon time per fight. So I think it's going to go long. I think it goes to distance, and I think they stand in front of each other and they throw hands. AJ, what do you think of that pick?
Shout out to Jessica Ai's body double for coming back after Valentina Shevchenko effectively, I thought, ended her UFC career. So happy to see Jessica Ai back on the canvas.
Today, to her credit, she did win a round. I mean, if McGregor won a round against Khabib too, that's also not talked. It isn't talked about because it doesn't matter because he didn't win the fight.
He's the only person who's ever won a round against Khabib in the UFC, if I'm correct. Is that a correct stat? I believe he is the only person on a scorecard to have won a round against Khabib. Potentially, I don't know where Gaethje was, or Poirier was. But up until the point against Conor McGregor, no one had even defeated Khabib in a single round on a scorecard.
What about one of his first? Was it Ilir Latifi he fought really early? Habib, or was it?
I'll look it up.
Tyson,
Tebow, maybe.
Tebow. It was Tebow that took him down, that outscored him in the takedowns. I think Tebow may have got the second round of that fight. I don't think he actually won it on a scorecard, but just from watching that fight, Gleason Tebow, I think actually. He did outscore him in the takedowns. I know that. But back on track. Conor McGregor, it's his show. We're getting into the Knockout Kings now. So Monkey Knife Fighters, all you MKFers sitting at home wondering what the Knockout King is. It's one of the Monkey Knife Fights 3-for-all contests. If all 3 of your selected fighters score a knockout on a minimum $5 entry, you're in to win your share of $5,000 for this massive UFC 264 card. So AJ, we need 3 knockouts from the card. Any card. It doesn't matter if it's the main card, the prelims, or dare I say it, your fight of the night to watch out for on Monkey Knife Fight. But who do you like as your 3 knockout picks for UFC 264?
We talked about 2 obvious ones, and then I'm going to go with one off the board. I really like Sean O'Malley for that knockout. Super obvious. His knockout prop is very juiced, around -300. And I also like Stephen Thompson as well. We both are on the same page there with he probably gets a knockout against Burns. And lastly, off the board play is Trevin Giles, who's facing an opponent in Duplessis, who I've seen officially he's only been knocked out once professionally, but I've seen him rocked plenty of times on the regionals. And Giles, for his issues with fight IQ and strategizing in there and things like that, he's a very good athlete. He's got fast hands. And we know he's got power. He's hurt a lot of guys. He hurt coming off a fight where he won a decision, but he still hurt Dolidze. He knocked up Evan Lewis. So Giles certainly has some pop in those hands. Duplessis, excuse me, got to work on that accent. Definitely could tighten up that defense, durability. We've seen get tested. I think Giles gets a knockout.
Oh, I think those are three solid picks. Trevin Giles, yeah, that's definitely a little out of the woodwork, though. I was definitely not expecting that one. Yeah, we talked about it before. Sugar Show, you have to have him in there. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Burns just won't last the 3 rounds with him, and he's going to get pieced up. So I think Wonderboy finishes that fight. My final pick is Tai Tuivasa. Greg Hardy is coming off a knockout loss. I expect him to run out of gas like we talked about, and I think Tuivasa just has more heart, and he's going to be in his face the entire time. I think he's going to overpower him and just finish Greg Hardy in the second round, maybe towards the end of the first round. Another fight, though, that should be noted for the Knockout Kings is Nico Price versus Michael Pereira, because either one of those guys can get knocked out in a second or knock somebody out in a second. Nico Price is so much fun to watch, and so is Pereira. Now that Pereira isn't doing the flips and stuff and the spinning kicks, and he's kind of honed his game a little bit, I think this one is just going to be two guys throwing to the wind and somebody's getting knocked out. I'm just not sure who, so I didn't take it in the Knockout Kings. What's your opinion on this fight? Because this is just such an awesome fight.
Is this the first guaranteed performance bonus heading into a fight night that has ever occurred? It's one of those there's just no way this isn't the most fun fight potentially of the century.
Yeah,
I mean, there's been, if you look back through the history of fights, you're going to look at the Bonner versus Forrest Griffin. You're going to look at Roy McDonald versus Robbie Lawler. Are we going to be adding Nico Price versus Michael Pereira to that conversation? Is that what you're getting at, Jason? Because that's bold company. That's a bold strategy.
It could be the greatest 3 rounds in UFC history. It could be. That's my hot take. Greatest 3 rounds of UFC history are coming up on Saturday night between these two.
So, AJ, I see Nico Price pressing forward. I see Michael Pereira landing a bunch of counter shots. And I think Pereira actually puts Price down in the later rounds. That is what I think, just based off of their aggression and their style. Or Nico Price just goes out and clips him early, and that's that. Or Nico Price hangs around and knocks him out. I just know somebody's getting knocked out. And I think Michael Pereira, now that he's sharpened up his toolbox, he's no longer throwing those insane flip kicks that we used to see in the acrobatics. I think a sharpened toolbox, and he's ready to throw some hands. What do you think about this fight, AJ? Because we've been talking about it. It's going to be awesome.
I'm interested to see if Pereira, because if he is going to go back to his old ways, it would be in a scenario like this. Live 100%. Crowd, Conor McGregor's fighting, because the last 2 times we saw him fight composed, empty arena, there was nobody there.
Well, he's also managed by Paragram Sports too, just like McGregor and Wonderboy. So kind of maybe not the same training gym, but the same management going on. Maybe a little teammate vibe. Maybe gets a little excited and just bam, flip kick.
Yeah, because when I watch Pereira fight, I'm like, this dude is so skilled. He's a great submission grappler. He's an elite level athlete. He's a good wrestler. He could strike well. But it's just he sabotages himself in there. And that's what I hope doesn't happen, because if he shows up at his best, I agree with you. I think he's better than Price. I think he could hurt Price. I think he's the more technical striker. He's the better wrestler and better grappler. So that should mean that he wins. But Price, similar to Pereira, just has the one-hitter quitter power. And we've seen him hurt plenty of guys. And I'm not going to let recency bias really sway my judgment on Price. He's coming off a fight against Cerrone where he didn't knock him out. He almost finished him early with a flurry, but and then we saw Cerrone, of course, knocked out by Morono the fight after, but I'm still sold that Price has some big power. He could hurt Pereira, but Pereira's shown to be durable. We're talking about this fight being awesome because Price is has only been the distance twice in his whole career. And Pereira has, for the vast majority of his fights, not been the distance either. I guess it depends on Pereira's approach, because if he approaches this fight like how he did against Chaos Williams and is just kind of content to play the outside game, Price could still walk forward, but I actually think that Pereira could kind of dance away and avoid some big exchanges. So I'm with you as far as the prediction goes, but I want it, and I think it probably a performance bonus probably does materialize for at least one of these guys here.
That was Jason.
Looking at
That was Jason. Yeah. I just said one of these guys is getting knocked out. Jason was the one that put it up there with the greatest fight of the century. Jason, there's the bus. You just got hit by it.
Potentially, allegedly.
I just hit you with the bus, Jason. You're done. You're done.
It's all good. Either way, it should be fun, but I'm not necessarily looking at it as if it's guaranteed just based on how Pereira's been coming out and fighting.
Well, I think one thing to take note too is that Nico Price, he lands over 5 significant strikes per minute, but he actually absorbs even more than he lands. He gets hit nearly 6 times a minute. And Pereira, you said it, he's got great striking when he buckles down and uses it. And if he stays to the outside, yeah, it could be a quick knockout, but I also think, Nico Price, and you mentioned it too, his strength and the fact that the way that he's been getting those knockouts off of his back, up kicks, hammer fists from his back. It's honestly, if Pereira could look like he's been dominating this fight, could have him in a great position, and the next thing you know, up kick, and it's over just like that. So I'm going to take less on both of their strike lines on Monkey Knife Fight, just because I think someone's going to go down. Those are a lot of strikes. And don't get me wrong, I think these guys are going to throw, and they're going to throw a lot, and they're going to throw hard, and it's going to be a show. But I just don't think they're going to last long enough to eclipse that line on Monkey Knife Fight. AJ, how do you see it playing out on the Monkey Knife Fight stance?
Yeah, I like your under on both fighters because the finish could happen, or we just see this fight where Pereira is not willing to exchange that much, just like he was against Williams. Williams was just largely having success with some low kicks. So I think that there could either be a finish or some low activity should it even play out. So I like your call there on the unders.
Another interesting fight that I just have to touch on being a couple of the OGs on the card here. You got Carlos Condit versus Max Griffin. Man, I love Carlos Condit, the natural born killer. I mean, back when I was growing up, he was fighting guys like George St. Pierre, just running through the golden years of that welterweight division. There's their strike lines on Monkey Knife Fight. I have this fight going to distance. I think Max Griffin, if he utilizes a proper game plan, could definitely win this fight with some takedowns and ground control time. But I also kind of don't see Griffin wanting to engage in that kind of fight. I see these two guys with a lot of respect for each other. They both said they're wanting to finish. Max Griffin was pretty aggressive with his media day towards Carlos Condit. Like, he's going in there for the win. Condit's got the height advantage. Max Griffin with the 1-inch reach advantage. I think these guys are going to bang, and I think this is going to be an awesome fight. How do you see this one going down, AJ, between these two, honestly, just legends of the game?
Yeah, I think you said it right there. If Griffin wants to land takedowns, I have no doubt that he can. It's just a matter of how willing will he be. Because he waited way too long to do it against Alex Morono. He waited until after he got rocked in round 3 to do it when it was a little too late. And kind of the same deal against Imadaev, but to a different degree. He wrestled early, but then it got him tired, and he struggled later on. So I think Griffin has done a better job of managing his cardio in recent fights. I think that those fights against Alves were like lesson learned to not expend so much energy in the early going. The other thing is the durability, because he's tough to actually put out, but he's been rocked many times as Griffin. And Condit, he's a good striker, good combination striker, even to this day.
Excellent striker.
Yeah, and Condit may debatably be more durable than Griffin, maybe. But when I look at the fight, I think you have to favor Griffin just because he's got a clear advantage with wrestling, with top control, and the striking exchanges could be competitive. I like the under on both guys. I honestly think that Griffin could take him down, but Condit's got the jiu-jitsu advantage. I don't think he'll do a whole lot with the takedown, so it pretty much just be some control. And I think they could be really respectful of one another's striking games and power. The fight is standing. So I like the under for both guys.
I think so. This is a little more hyped up juice than anything else. But I think, you know what, these two guys, they're, as we said, OGs, legends of the game. They're going to be fighting in front of a crowd for the first time in over a year. They're going to be hyped up. They're going to be ready to go. And I don't know. And we said it, right? Max Griffin has the ability to go for the takedown, control the fight, and we both see these guys go less on their strike lines. But I think you see each other across the cage. It's been a while. I don't think, when was Max Griffin's last fight? Was, March 2021. So he just fought recently. But Carlos Condit, it's been a minute. And I just think these two guys are going to stand, and I think they're going to bang with each other, and it's going to be a fun fight. You know, the Matt Brown fight, Carlos Condit looked really good in that. The Court McGee fight, he landed 88 strikes. Court McGee landed 84. And I think that's what it's going to be closer to. But I do think it will go less, but I do think it'll be much closer than originally, just looking at those lines and seeing that high number. I think it's going to be much closer, but I think both of them do go for less. But I do think it'll be much more of a striker's fight than the technical fight that Max Griffin could present if he so chose. AJ, are you there? Sorry. Yeah, I thought I lost you for a second there. All good. We have. All right. Well, moving on to the next fight, we have Ryan Hall versus Ilia Topuria. You mentioned this earlier. Topuria, great prospect. Hall, a little over the hill. I think he's 36 years old now. This is definitely a great opportunity for Topuria. How do you see this one playing out there, AJ?
Yeah, very, very interesting fight. And one stat that I came across when researching this fight in particular is a fighter that has a 12-year age advantage, so they're 12 years younger than the opposition. They win roughly around 70% of the time, and that's what we have here with Topuria. I really like this kid. I do. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's a good athlete, good boxer, solid wrestling as well. We haven't really seen him tested a whole lot in terms of like going 3 rounds. We saw him go 3 rounds against Yusuf Zalal on his debut, and he slowed down a bit there, but it was a good learning experience for him, I think. And Hall's just been on the shelf. I mean, we haven't seen him fight since July of 2019. And I mean, Hall's got a boring style, but also an intelligent style. He's very good at just keeping his range, throwing various karate-based kicks on the outside. And when you actually close the distance to track him down, he flops to his back. And most guys don't go into his guard because he's just such a jiu-jitsu wizard. I mean, he's got some of the best submission grappling credentials in the sport. And so he's just, when you look at his stats, his striking defense is 75%. He absorbs less than 1 strike per minute. I have concerns, though, about Hall in this matchup because Topuria, I think, will be a bit more willing to engage on top from the top position than, say, Darren Elkins or Gray Maynard was, because Topuria is a young, confident kid. He hasn't lost. I don't see why it'll really shake his confidence to go into his guard. I think he could land some ground and pound in Hall. And in the stand-up exchanges, I think Topuria is going to be faster. I think he's a better athlete. And when I watch Hall fight, I don't think he likes getting punched in the face. I know that you could say that about every fighter, but him especially. He does a lot of back turning. Like I said, he'll flop to his back when you like actually, engage him, cut off the octagon. And I really like Topuria's boxing. His hands are sharp. He's got power. He's fast. And I just think that he rolls here. I think that the young buck gets his biggest win to date and moves his way up the ranks. So Hall will be a stiff test. He's going to be dangerous on the ground as always, but I trust Topuria enough to stay out of danger and come out with his hand raised here.
Yeah, something about Topuria that I think too, on top of his boxing, I mean, he averages over 4 takedowns per 15 minutes of octagon time. Now, I know that's a small sample size in 2 fights, but I think he has the ability to hold himself on the ground. And the 100% takedown defense says something too, that he can hold himself up, that he can grapple. I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it goes a little longer. I actually like both these guys to go for more than the significant strike lines on Monkey Knife Fight, just because I think it does go longer because of Ryan Hall's experience. How do you see that one playing out, AJ?
I like over for both of them as well. I think it probably goes the distance. Little concerned about a Topuria knockout, but I lean that it goes the full way.
All right, AJ, final thoughts on the card. We just ran through, I think, every single one of the fights, which is absolutely incredible for everyone listening at home. We did a Knockout Kings contest. Oh, me, oh, my. We are covering everything. AJ, what are you most excited for heading into UFC 264?
Oh, it's got to be that main event, man. Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier. This is the most highly anticipated fight, I think, in all of combat sports right now. Even bigger than a DS trilogy. Just look at the dynamic of the fight. Conor knocking out Dustin, Dustin knocking out Conor 6 months ago. And the sport's always spectacular when Conor fights. So tensions are a little higher, and awesome fight.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely what I'm most excited for. And then again, outside of that, I'm just excited for how generally great this card is and how deep it is. And the fact that we can be talking about these prelim cards and know who all these fighters are. We can be talking about these prelim cards and be ready to use some of these things in our Knockout Kings contest. I just love the depth of the card. I'm excited for it. And I'm going to have my butt glued to the couch all day tomorrow. Folks, make sure that you head on over to Monkey Knife Fight for a free $5 ticket. Use the code UFC 264 on Monkey Knife Fight in the promo code section. All caps, all one word. AJ, thank you so much for joining us on Monkey Knife Fight Live. I had an awesome time, and I can't wait to see you next week and talk some more fights and see who was right about UFC 264 and going forward. Before we go, I have one last prediction. The winner of the main event for UFC 264 will be the champion by the end of 2021. That is my take. AJ, what do you think about that hot take?
I like it. I think you're spot on there.
Yeah, except I think Conor's going to win and you think Dustin's going to win. So we're on opposite sides of the fence there. But folks, thank you so much for joining us. As always, I'm Conor Rowntree. That was AJ. Make sure you check out AJ MMA Betting. And as always, remember to hit it hard.